I'm not even going to try and pronounce your last name. I'm assuming. Let me give it a try. Let me give it a try. Is it Matijevic? Is that how it's said? No, dang it.
Almost.
How do I say it? How do I say it?
You say Matijevic.
Barbara Matijevic. Heck yeah.
Perfect.
That's who we're here with today. I'm super stoked to have Barbara on the podcast today. She is a super amazing creator that I came across via LinkedIn. She posts a lot of awesome stuff on there in terms of like creativity, burnout, like energy management, all kinds of cool stuff. And I'm just excited to dive right into this. I did a bit of research before this on some of the things that you've shared, your story and that kind of thing. Tell me a bit about your experience with burnout, because I think that's something you share a lot about. So tell me a little bit about what this looked like for you.
Okay, let's go back. God, okay, like mid-teens, Barbara, 16 years old. She had one dream, and that one dream was to get to an Ivy League. I was so stoked about it. I said, you know what? I'm going to do great at school. I'm going to do all of the extracurriculars. I looked at the people who made it to Ivy Leagues. It's like these kids, they wrote research papers. They had like multi-million-dollar businesses. And I was like, okay, like the standards are high, but you know what? I'm going to push it. So I spent those last 3-4 years of high school absolutely pushing my limit, which meant I did every single AP possible. I did every single extracurricular possible. And on top of that, I was writing a lot. I was doing poetry. And my God, did I burn out hard. I basically was sleeping 3-4 hours a night because I lived with a bunch of other students and they always stayed up at night and I wanted to have my peace to study. So I would go to bed early and I'd wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. just to study. And I would live off of coffee. I would live off of Red Bull. And when that wasn't enough, I would add pre-workout. Now, I did work out at the time, but that pre-workout was for me to stay awake. It was not for me to go and like hash out a good session at the gym. Let's just say I was pushing my body's limits. I was sleep deprived. I wasn't eating enough. And my hands, I would sit around, my hands would literally shake out of all of the like excess caffeine I was consuming. So come last year of university, I had a few finals to do and I failed half of them. Middle of the year, great grades. I'm on track. You know, the school was like, great, Barbara, you know what? Aim for the Ivy Leagues. And I failed half of my finals and I couldn't do anything about it. And obviously I didn't make it to Harvard. I did awfully in my SATs. And I sat there and what was essentially my whole identity for the past 3 years had kind of just been demolished, you know, and there was nothing I could do about it. And then on top of that, I was burnt out. So like, you know, I don't know if you've ever experienced burnout, but like you're tired, you're depressed, you have no motivation to anything. So I slept all day. I played video games all day. I was a classic, let's say, hermit in his bed, which honestly at the time felt like the worst time of my life, but was probably the best thing that could have happened to me because it made me reassess and ask myself, okay, I didn't get that dream, but like, who am I without the work? You know, who is Barbara? And it was through figuring that out that I actually got out of that burnout cycle. And I realized that burnout to me was not because I was overworked, even though I did overwork, but the key core issue was that I was overworking because the stuff I was aiming for was not even what I truly wanted. And because I was working, I was escaping that thought because I didn't want to admit that I wasn't chasing my dream. I was chasing the dream of like success and making my parents proud and all of that stuff. And right now, I've like 3 years later, 3 years into university, I fully understand what I truly want. And I'm doing a lot more work than I used to do before, and yet I sleep better. I'm not burnt out, and it's because that work genuinely is purposeful and it feels right to me in my gut. So I'm not escaping any uncomfortable emotions through overworking because we all try to like, whenever we're trying to escape emotions, we just work and we think we're doing something productive when really we're just doing like, what do you call it? It's kind of like when you procrastinate. But it feels like good procrastination.
Like escapism?
Yeah, escapism, basically. So that's kind of like my lowdown on burnout. I did burn out again, like once after that, the first year of university. Because I did the same thing again. I was chasing money, exterior success, stuff that didn't really light me up inside.
I like that. And it's It's an easy trap to fall into because unlike actually procrastinating and not doing anything, working a lot can feel really productive. Like, oh, I'm making all this progress and doing all this work. That makes me like a good person, or like, I'm building up this like internal value of I'm doing all this work because, that's the kind of person that I am. But run me through how you navigated that kind of post burnout. And what I mean by that is you burnt out because from what you were saying, you had a previous identity and a thing that you were working towards that wasn't really aligned with who you are and what you wanted to do. So when you reached that point, I'm assuming there was a bit of a breakdown of who, like you said, who even am I? What do I even want? And that kind of thing. So talk me through how you navigated that to get to the point where you are now, where you are doing more purposeful work. You feel really good about what you're doing. I'm sure there's probably some old symptoms in there too sometimes, but you feel better about the work that you're doing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm being completely honest, it's not as clear and as linear as I would want it to be in my head, because then I could tell people, like, all right, you've burnt out. Here's the step-by-step way to solve it. And honestly, I don't think there is one. I think it's completely personal to each and every singular human being. Um, for me, it involved a lot of reflection, number one. And number two, you have to actually work through some insecurities, because I needed to ask myself, why did I feel the need to do that kind of work? Why did I feel the need to chase success? Why did I feel the need to chase money? What am I hiding from? And the thing I was hiding from was the fact that I didn't think I was worthy. And because I didn't think I was worthy enough, I was trying to prove my worth to the world, which I think a lot of us fall under that kind of bucket, where we constantly feel like, if I don't do this, this, and that, I haven't proven that I'm a worthy human being in this society. And I guess working through that emotion, I started therapy, which helped a lot, by the way, CBT therapy. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. They basically look at your thoughts and you actively try to reshape them, but not in a way where it's like affirmations, but more like you look at your thoughts, you dissect them, and then you ask yourself, do these actually represent my core values? And when you realize they don't, you cognitively realize, right, actually, that thought doesn't mean anything to me. And over time, you truly do believe that that thought is actually like complete BS. Um, so it takes a lot of times of work, but for me, therapy, lots of reflection and insightfulness. I made a lot of mistakes as well, but as long as you constantly reassure and tell yourself, I actually want to get out of the cycle, and you're brutally
Mhm.
honest with yourself, you will find a way through burnout. But there's no one clear answer, because it depends completely on your context, situation, who you are, where you want to be, like, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think there is a lot of nuance to it. And I think part of that nuance too is that it's a process. I think a lot of the
Yeah.
time, the security that we can get from having like a big aspirational goal is it's very like concrete, right? Which is reassuring of I know exactly where I'm going and what I'm working towards. Even if you haven't done the inner work of figuring out like why do I even care about that, it can give you a lot of stability. But the journey of figuring out who actually am I, what matters to me, what kind of thoughts do I want to have in my head, that takes a lot more work and a lot more conscious effort to figure out where am I going. And it's a process that's ongoing. I'm assuming for you, you didn't just go through this process and like light bulb moment, I know exactly what I'm going to do in my life.
Yeah.
And everything is now clear and there's no doubts in my mind at all about what I'm going to do, right? Like it's a process.
Absolutely. Even now, I still fall into tendencies which will let me to burn out. So there's no one golden solution, like you said. You can't just get a statement from someone and be like, right, I figured it out. That problem is ticked off forever.
It's
We move
done.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So I think a big part of this, and you were hinting at this too, is the labels that we give to ourselves, right? Part of your identity, part of the reason why you're doing these things. Why do you think that we get so attached to the labels we give ourselves?
Because other people label us. Society labels us constantly. I mean, when you enter, I think the first rude awakening is when you go to school as a kid. And you know how children can be. They can be absolutely brutal. So you get
Mhm.
labeled the moment you get to school. Oh, she's like this. Oh, he's like that. Blah, 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 blah. And we internalize those labels. And then we learn over time. Then our parents label us, our family labels us. Oh, you're like this. You're like that. Oh, Barbara, she's like that. Or Jarek, he's known to do this, this, and that. And then we,
Mhm.
without even knowing it, we subconsciously, we just internalize those labels. And I also think it's because we don't like uncertainty. Like, if you just tell yourself, oh, I'm some omniscient being who constantly shifts and shapes and everything is like on a spectrum, that's no certainty, because you mean that you're completely uncertain about who you are, who you're going to be, whether that's going to change. We want to know, I am like this. This is the box I've put myself into. And it also lets me, gear towards my goals. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's good to know what your values are and use that to kind of shape where you're going so that everything is not too uncertain. But you should be open-minded enough to continuously reflect and be aware of your emotions and yourself so that you do know that when things shift, and they will shift, that you're open to that shift and change. So you're kind of like a box, but you're more like water, so you can kind of shift a bit more.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. And I think that each little label is like you said, kind of like a box that you put yourself in that you identify with. And the power comes from choosing the kinds of boxes that you'd prefer to be in. Some boxes are really, really small. Some are quite a lot bigger and some fit you better, you know? And so you have to choose the kinds of labels that you want to be. And that's, I think, from my personal experience, is a big part of the process is that you get to decide, in some sense, the kind of person that you are and the labels that you'll accept and that you'll work towards. And as you say, these are the kinds of labels I have for myself, they become more and more true, right?
Yes.
So that leads into the thing I was going to ask you next. And that is, do you feel like when you're going through this identity change that you're building a new identity for yourself, or that you're discovering more of your true identity?
You can think about that in many, many different ways. One quote that come into my mind, which is kind of like, you don't find your identity, you build it. I forgot who the quote is from. It's not exactly stated like that. Or like you earn your identity.
Right.
So, and the reason why I like that quote is because you don't tell yourself, oh, I'm lazy. Oh, I don't like to do sports. Oh, I'm not a runner. I'm not a writer. You internalize that and you're going to make that happen. Like, one quote that has always been right in my life is that you are always correct. And people will think, oh yeah, I'm not right. Like, I've made mistakes before. I've made bad assumptions. But it's like deep down, you're always right. Because if you tell yourself that you're lazy, you're going to be lazy. If you tell yourself I'm bad at maths, you're going to be bad at maths because you've put yourself into that box. So to go back and answer your question as to like who you are and whether you find your identity or if you build it, I think, from my personal biased opinion, I think there are parts of you that stay from the beginning of childhood. There's certain aspects of me that I've had since I've been 3 years old, and that has never changed from my core. But who I become to be is what I choose. And I think there's a certain nice freedom to that. It's like you're not stuck as a person. And that's the beauty of being a human, is actually we can learn, we can evolve. There's new studies coming out about neuroscience, neuroplasticity. You can reshape your mind, you can reshape your beliefs. I mean, we're not stagnant beings, which is, I guess, the beauty of life. Is life's your oyster. Is that what people say?
Yeah.
Life's your oyster.
Oh, the world's your oyster. Your life.
The world's your oyster. Blah blah blah. Yeah,
same
it
thing.
is.
Same thing.
It is.
I love that, and I think that this is something that I've thought about a lot as well, and it's something that makes me like low-key kind of sad. Is that I meet so many people that settle or that accept life for what it is because they've heard these same labels, they've told themselves these same things so many times they don't believe it's possible that life could be more than what it is right now, which I completely understand, and I'm not judging in any way. But at the same time, I'm like, I wish I could just like shake you and open your eyes, like, because the world is your oyster. Like, you determine what your horizons are, you determine what you're going to do with your life, and that's super empowering to really know and believe that, that you don't have to be limited by any of these things. You can think and dream big. You can do crazy cool stuff. I think you're actually a really amazing example of that, and we'll dive into that later as well with some of the things that you've done. But world is your oyster, and you just have to believe that it is,
Yes. Like, your mind, people don't realize how capable your mind is of shaping your external reality. Sometimes you don't have to shape the outside, you have to just shape the inside, and that's fully underneath like your control. The moment you shift your mind, you will watch your external self like shift quite a lot. So there's a power to that, there's a huge freedom to that, and I think, like helping people realize that would be an absolute blessing, because just a simple mindset shift and realization of that can change lives, genuinely.
Making your perspective on this, I think a lot of people right now, especially online, talk about being authentic and like living authentically and all of that kind of stuff. I think in some sense it's a bit of a buzzword. I don't think people really know what it means a lot of the time. But what's your take on being authentic or living your life authentically?
Well, to answer first social stuff, I think definitely it is a buzzword. I think a lot of people, they search up what authentic is, and usually what AI and like Google will come up with is people who have very strong personalities. And then you'll see everyone copying those kind of personalities, and they'll think that's authenticity. Authenticity is being different, but it's not. It's just being yourself, you know? And the way I would describe authenticity, so for me in LinkedIn, first early days, I was not authentic. I basically copied the biggest creators and followed exactly what they did. I wrote like they did because I thought that's what's going to work, you know? And then the moment I took a huge break from LinkedIn, because I burned out a bit from LinkedIn. Why? Because it didn't feel like me. I didn't feel like I was posting what felt like I was producing. It felt more like I was regurgitating what everyone else was doing. And I could tell deep down that that was wrong. So I came back and I said, you know what? I'm just going to write what I feel like writing. And I'm going to write by myself. I'm not going to use AI. I'm not going to over optimize it. And I wrote the same way I write to my closest friends. And the way I behave around my closest friends is how I behave when I'm home alone. I think that's you being your true authentic self. You know, you don't feel like this tension in your spine. You don't feel like you don't get tired from hanging out with those friends because you're not changing yourself. You're not constantly calculating what to say, what to do, body language. You just chill out. And when you chill out and you produce content with that, then you're being authentic. But if you are trying to shift the narrative and shape the story towards something that it is not, that's not being authentic. And I have a feeling people online, they can smell that from miles away. Like, you can be the best inauthentic, authentic person, and people will somehow know. They will always, always know. So I think you can try to fake authenticity, but actually just being authentic is way easier. Like, way, way less time spent, way less effort, way less stressful. Just be yourself, honestly. And you'll attract people, opportunities, and the life that fits you. So why wouldn't you go through with that?
I love that. And honestly, I couldn't agree more. I wish I could beam that last little like 2 minutes into everyone's brains so that they can understand, you know what I mean? Understand about authenticity and how it really works. So let me ask you this. We're both on LinkedIn a lot. Why do you think so many people show up in a way that's not authentic? You know, because let me tell you, and I'm sure that you've seen this too, the amount of people on LinkedIn, or I'm assuming probably any social platform, that I would say are authentic is really small. You know, like it is not big. So why do you think that is?
Because you show up on LinkedIn or any other new platform and you just, it's so, what do you call it? It's overwhelming. Because like so many other people are producing on there. You have content creators with like 40,000 subscribers, and you're sitting there, you get no likes on your stuff, you get no comments, no reshares, and you're talking to a void and you don't even know what to do with it. So obviously you copy what the successful creators do, which is what I think the first loophole people fall into is they overcopy. And one thing I would mention about social media and stuff like that is you can't find a more uncertain industry than media. Like, there's no such thing as a perfect source, perfect thingy. Like, there's no media company out there that can say, I will guarantee you get 1 million views on this video. Because we can't predict it. We can use AI, we can use stats. You can have years of experience. I mean, you could have built up a whole, like, following. But that does not mean you can repeat it. Because it's so unpredictable. So the main thing I would want to iterate to people is saying just, like, copy them, sure. Like, see how they got there, but what got them there is not going to get you there. You can't, there's no replaceable pattern. If there was, people would have found it. So many people analyze social media all the time. They have data, stats. No one has figured it out because there is no one size fits all. And then the second loophole they fall down is people are insecure and they don't feel like their authentic self is interesting. They don't feel like people would want to listen to that. I still sometimes doubt that. I ask myself, like, why do people actually want to read my content? But then I accept it, you know? If they do, then they do, and I'm happy with that, and they're happy with that. So I'd say those are the two things, the two reasons. There are many more, but those are the two main reasons why people are so unauthentic online.
I think that's one of the interesting things is that when you first start posting online, it's interesting because most of the time your content is probably going to suck. Like, just completely honest, like you don't know how to show up or how to tell stories or do anything like that, right? So copying people is going to be helpful in the sense of you start to internalize some of the patterns and ways that you can show up and the stories that you can tell. But the problem then becomes, and you just kind of mentioned that really well, is that that's all you do is just replicate exactly what other people do. And it doesn't work. Like, I could go right now and I could take a post from Laura Acosta and I could word for word repost it and it will not do as well. And I think
Yeah.
the reason why, and this I think ties into this whole authenticity idea, is that I'm not Lara Costa. Meaning that I don't have that same like relational capital and investment that her audience has with her, right? People
Yes.
don't just read her stuff because her stuff is good. They read her stuff because it's Lara Acosta, right? Like
Yeah.
I will read your posts on burnout or whatever because, oh, well, Barbara's talking about it. I want to know what Barbara has to say
Yeah.
because she's posted cool stuff in the past and I want to hear her perspective. And I think that's what people miss is that's actually not just the content you post, but it's like the relationship that you build in the way that you show up over and over and over again. That's
Absolutely.
what's like the key factor. And that's where you need to be authentic because otherwise you're just like generic wallpaper on people's feeds, you know, like they'll see a post and be like, oh, that's cool, but they'll never come back
Yeah.
because there's no soul, there's no personality.
Because you see it a million times before. Everyone's talking about it. I don't think there's a single piece of content you can write that's 100% original. You can write it in your own
True.
voice. You can communicate it in your own way, but it's not original. Someone's already thought of it. Someone's already written it. Like so much on social media right now. You're not going to come up with something brand, like, you know, something like, I don't know, Nobel Prize, like, I don't know. Unless you are like a scientist and you discover something new. There's no way you're coming up with something new. So you do need to add the persona to that, like you said. And Lara Acosta, she did that perfectly, and people follow her for her.
So tell me a little bit about how you actually got started on LinkedIn, because that's what I'm curious about. And I'm also curious about your tagline on LinkedIn, which is serving smiles, not sales. What's the story behind that as well?
God, the story of the tagline. Okay, so my first favorite tagline I made was "No, ChatGPT didn't write this."
That's a
It's
good
like
one.
it got
I
lots
like
of
that.
laughs. People smiled about it. It's funny. Serving smiles, not sales, is, I guess, kind of like joking and making fun of the common thing you see on LinkedIn, which is people constantly selling stuff to you. Like you'll start reading something and they'll be like, oh, buy this, buy that, you know, or people message you and it sounds first authentic and then afterwards you realize it's some regurgitated like sales pitch that they paste to everyone and it's not even relevant to you. So I felt like a way to explain to people that I don't post sales on my posts. My posts are literally there just to make people smile, to maybe add me perspective. And honestly, the main goal of my LinkedIn page when I made that tagline was to have a place where people can talk, have a good discussion, and support each other, and kind of be just like a little little ray of sunshine and all the gloom of the AI and sales stuff on LinkedIn. Not to discount it, but just more like just to break things up a little bit in the algorithm.
I like that. I like that. And I think it definitely works. The like ray of sunshine thing, like your account stands out a lot compared to other people, which I think is fantastic.
Love it.
Let me ask you this. A lot of people that really want to optimize and see success on LinkedIn will talk about, you need to have all these pillars. You need to have these particular things that you talk about. You know, what does my audience care about? You know, like all of those kinds of things. All the very, I want to get results from LinkedIn as fast as possible sort of thing. How do you navigate that?
So when I first started LinkedIn, I had content pillars and I overanalyzed my audience. And I can tell you now, all of my posts flopped. No one was engaged with my content. And the only people who actually interacted with my content only interacted with it because I interacted with their content. So it's kind of like I did you a favor, you do me a favor. And it wasn't genuine, like, oh, I liked what you wrote and I wanted to comment on it. And I think what I would tell to people is they need to be patient. Like, actually slow down, forget about the long-term goal right now. Yes, keep it in mind, but don't try to get there quick. Because if you get there quick, it's not going to be fruitful and it's not going to be the way you expect it to be. And if you ask yourself, like, oh, you know, in business, they always say, what's your unique value proposition? Your unique value proposition is you. It's literally you, who you are, your individual experiences. Write about that. And people will genuinely, like, they will feel it, and there's going to be people who resonate with it. And the reason why it takes so long is because the algorithm doesn't know who you are and what you like, what kind of content you post. And so it's going to push it out to some people and it's not going to perform. It's going to push it out to other people. It's not going to perform. At some point, it's going to reach a person that likes your content. And voila, you have your first official like follower, you know, like a real follower. That real follower algorithm is going to be like, okay, let's push it to similar people. And then soon, it's like, I like to use the analogy of like a T-shape. So you have this breadth and you're posting your content and it's going here, 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 and there, and no one's resonating with it. At some point, it's going to resonate and it's going to go downwards and it's going to go into depth. And you're going to finally find your core audience. Because there's so many people on these social platforms, you just need to find them. And the moment you find them, the growth is actually exponential. And you've changed nothing about what you write. It's just the fact that it just takes some time to churn out and find those people, because you're shouting into the whole world void, you know? And these platforms don't want to have nonsense on their feeds. So they're testing whether or not you're posting nonsense, but they'll always test it. You're never going to be put out to 0 views, so you can be okay with that. But because of that, you can't stop posting, and you have to continue posting what you post and stop doubting it, because maybe you wrote a great post that your followers would love, but the algorithm right now doesn't know who those followers are, and it sends it out to the wrong people. And that's why I say be patient and just keep posting what you post. And I know why people do content pillars. It's because that's what Lara Acosta, I think, also kind of says that she did. She had these 3 content pillars, It's like, okay, let's all go copy Lara Acosta. But that was her journey, and that was her formula. You can't follow that, you know? So that's what I would advise to people.
I chatted with a guy recently who was really stressed because he couldn't figure out what his content pillars were. And what I talked to him about then was that it's really easy for people like way down the journey who've seen way like a ton of success to say that this is the way that I had planned it from the start, right? Like if you've made 2,000 posts and you can basically see, oh, I cover basically just these 3 things, like I had these pillars the whole time. You know, like, oh, did you really? Or did you just figure out what you were doing and then be like, oh yeah, it was because I had 3 pillars, you know? And so I think that's part of the hard thing as well. With obviously we want to have amazing people that we look up to. Like I look up to people like Alex Ramosi and Lara Acosta and other people, you know, whatever. But like what you're saying, the way that they got there, they'll like explain in hindsight like they knew what they were doing the whole time. But that's actually not true. They were just like you are, not speaking to you directly, Barbara, but just to everyone. They're just like you are right now, being like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I need to try something, I need to figure something out, I need to test, blah, blah, blah. And because they did those things, they've then been like, I need to talk about these 3 things because this is what my audience resonates with. How did they know those were the 3 things? Because they posted like 20 different things first. And then they saw, oh my gosh, these are the 3 things that resonate the most. You can't like pre-plan what your audience is going to care about. That's not how it works. And so that's something that I said to this guy that I was talking to is like, hey, chill out, man. Like, it's actually not that deep, and you don't need to over optimize and plan your content. Just like yap about what you're interested in and put it in a way that's actually valuable to other people. Don't make it this like self-indulgent, you know, oh, I'm on my high tower thinking about this stuff. Like, you do need to make it like relevant. But again, people that are way ahead of you are going to act like everything they did to get there made complete sense and was planned out beforehand. That is not the case. And their journey is different because, like, for example, I don't want to be Lara Acosta. So I don't need to do what she does, right? Like, that's not what I'm trying to build for my life. I'd prefer to figure out what I want to do, how I want to get there. And then go from there, you know?
You are like 100% absolutely right on that. Like, I remember I'm studying Substack right now. Before I started Substack, I was like, okay, let me think about what I did on LinkedIn because that worked, you know? And I was thinking back to it. I was like, okay, what exactly did I do? Like, what process did I tried to deconstruct it. And then I realized I was clueless the entire time. And I'm still clueless now. Except, like, now, like you said, I know what usually performs better because I learned after posting many different things. But even then, like, if you go through my feed, people tell me all the time, like, oh, Barbara, how do you get your, like, content to perform so well? And I tell them, go onto my feed and scroll. And you're going to see that actually a lot of my posts, like, perform like jack, you know? Like, I'll maybe get one post that gets 1,000. The next one's going to get 10 likes. And the next one's going to get 30 likes. And the next one maybe like 50 likes. And then back to 10 likes. And then again, maybe a 500 like post. But I don't know that. You can see if I knew, I would write a post every single time that has 1,000, you know, likes and gets me many followers. But I don't know how that works, you know? So I just write what feels right to me. And then whatever works, works. And what doesn't work, doesn't work. And one reassuring thing I would tell to people is like, oh, what if I like write like a bad post? People are going to think bad of me. They're not going to like trust me. I'm like, the beauty of a post performing badly is that no one's going to see it.
Facts.
No one's going to see it. It has low views. It has low likes. The few people that liked it. And they all forgot about it. We move on. And the only posts people actually see are the ones that perform well. I mean, it makes logical sense. It has more views. So you can write a crappy post. I've had very recent, like, you know, crappy posts. But posts that just didn't perform. And I thought they would perform well. After you write for a long time, you just kind of get used to it, and you just continue doing as you do.
An easy trap to fall into is that you associate your sense of worth or progress to the amount of engagement your posts get, which is absolutely like a death trap if you want to be on social media for more than 3 months and retain your sanity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
I don't know how you navigate that, especially because you mentioned sometimes there's just wild fluctuations, right? Like last week,
Yeah.
for some reason, all my posts did like amazing. And I was like, whoa, this is like really cool. And then this week, like
Yeah.
so bad. And I haven't changed anything, right? I'm like, what is the deal? So
Yes.
how do you kind of stay sane in that process? Because I agree, you need to put out stuff, you need to iterate, you need to express yourself and figure out how you want to show up online. But as you go
Yeah.
through that, you're going to get to really high highs, to really low lows, and that can be kind of hard to navigate. So how do you get through that while keeping your sanity, you know?
All right. One thing I think that might ease people off a little bit is I've been on LinkedIn for a bit over a year now, and I quit 3 times. And those 3 times I quit, I left for at least 1 or 2 months. Like I fully quit. I was like, nothing's performing. I give up. Like I don't understand content. Blah 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 blah. And it was great. After I gave up, like I actually just like each of those times had reflections about what I was posting. Was it purposeful? And I still got the reinvigoration again to go back and post. And every single time I came back, like I didn't lose any. Like, okay, first week was awful, but like I didn't lose any progress. You know, like I actually just continued from where I was. And even now, I do still doubt myself. But I think the thing that keeps me going is the fact that the purpose of me posting is bigger than visibility and metrics. Yes, they're great. But for me, the main purpose is impact and impact on people. I do get messages from some people who say like, "Oh, your content helped me with this," or I hopped in a call with a guy. Like I didn't realize these people existed. They're like, I've been reading you for over a year, and I didn't think people have been reading for that long. Cause I'm still not like, but I wasn't relevant a year ago, you know. And they're like, I looked up to you so much, and like you helped me get to this phase in life. And I was like, wow, I didn't know you existed. The time that you're speaking of, where I did impact you, I was doubting myself on LinkedIn. I hated my content. I wasn't doing anything, but there were people behind the scene, and I keep reminding myself of that. Is you've put out a piece of content, maybe a few people like that, but you don't know if one of those people actually like got positively influenced by what you wrote. Maybe it actually did help them, and so you might as well, you know, you're not you don't have limited arrows to shoot. You've got infinity arrows. You've got like a little bullseye and you're shooting at it. So just keep going. You're gonna hit sometimes, you're gonna flop sometimes, you know. You don't, yeah, and you have to like I still have to continuously remind myself of the fact that it's okay if it doesn't perform well. And even then I still do have moments where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore, but for some reason I always come back. So it's not a linear progress or process. It's not, there's no one thing that can like make you be happy with how you perform. I think even the best content creators who have millions of followers still struggle about this. So yeah.
100%. I've actually had people recently start to reach out to me. I've never had this happen before. Or they're like, oh my gosh, like I really enjoy your content. Like it's actually helped me a lot. Like, who are you? Like not in a rude way, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But like, whoa, that's so crazy to me. But I love that your approach, from what I can tell, is you know what you want to achieve on LinkedIn. I think that's a very important step, or just on any social platform. And it sounds like to me that you're optimizing for like impact and resonance, right? Rather than any other metrics that people go for. And I think that that's a trap that I've fallen into a lot. It's actually something that I've been struggling with a bunch recently. So I'm really glad we're having this conversation. Is that LinkedIn for me, though it is a lot about my own personal expression, is also part of my business, right? And so I feel a lot of pressure to perform in a certain way that allows me to grow my business. And so I find myself doing things and showing up in a way that I'm like, I just don't really like that. But I'm scared that if I don't do that, that I'm not going to get those conversions and get the kinds of people that I want to work with, right? But I think what I'm hearing from you and what I'm seeing for myself as well, so when I optimize for the right things, the indirect things, the impact, the resonance, these things that we're talking about, those other things come naturally because
Yes.
you've made a difference for people. They've built a connection with you because of the stuff that you're sharing, because you're showing up authentically, you're being yourself, and the barrier to providing value for them is way lower, rather than if you approach it from I'm here to sell you this, this, and this, and you have to try and convince and do all this stuff, right? And so I really appreciate and I like you sharing that, because I think that it's a perspective that, for me at least, feels a lot more natural and healthy and can actually help me have a good relationship with
Yeah.
my social media, which is a bit,
It's
it's not
mixed.
really the best all the time. It's not really the best all the time. So I really like that. I really like that. So how does your LinkedIn tie with kind of your overall mission? You mentioned this to me before we hit record about what you really want to do and what you get a lot of joy out of. Tell me a bit about what that is and how your
Yeah.
LinkedIn kind of helps with that.
All right. So actually, LinkedIn is what made me realize it because the first time I began posting, I had students reach out to me asking for like support, for guidance, and I would meet up with them. I would give them help with integrating into uni society. Some of them we'd talk about burnout, we'd talk about uni work, making friends, fitting in, and seeing them shift after our conversations, seeing them like grow to accept themselves, to put themselves out there, to have that confidence. And then we meet up months later and they're doing so much better. It immediately, like, I don't know, it just felt right to me. And I was like, you know what? This is what I want to do. And so it continued with LinkedIn. I continued writing, thinking I just want to somehow impact people's lives positively because I spent so many years in a negative cycle. I had when I was younger, you would not recognize me. I was a very, very dark kid. I was very depressed. I was constantly anxious. I had no positivity for the world at all. And I did not think I would ever get out of that cycle. And I know what it's like to be there. I know how it feels like it's never ending. And I just wish I had someone there to nudge me and remind me that actually, you know what, things are going to be fine in the grand scheme of things. So I felt like it's kind of like my mission to try and do the same for others. And even if I only impact one person in my entire life, that's a whole life you have changed, for the better. So that's LinkedIn. After LinkedIn, I'm training to be a coach because I do want to start coaching people less like psychologically, but more towards life, mindset. I love CBT, like reshaping your cognitive thinking. And then I'll also be doing some like nutrition work on the side because I do think movement, food habits and stuff like that do also shape your mind. So that's kind of like the big overall mission. Sounds a little bit like loopy. Oh, positivity. I want to make people happy. But I do. I just want to make people happy. And I want to help them add some brightness and light and purpose into their lives. So Western society is so fast paced. We're in such a rat race right now, and it is exhausting. And if you go even a little bit outside of the world and you see how other people and cultures live, it's like a breath of fresh air. And you know what? We're actually just in a box and we're in this bubble and we think this is it. Life is made of that. And you just need just a little bit of awareness and a tiny push to see that it's not like that. And the moment you see that, you've broken the matrix. You're out of that whole treadmill run cycle.
100%. What's your opinion on hustle culture?
I'm mixed because I know some people who thrive on work. Like it genuinely makes them happy. I know people who haven't retired until they were 80 or 90, and even then, like they worked until their deathbed, and it truly made them happy. But there's a difference between loving your work and thriving on work and being a little bit of a workaholic to getting stuck in this never-ending run or loop of chasing things that actually never fulfill you. And I think hustle culture really, really exacerbates that. I spoke about it in my recent article on Substack. There's so many great, like, I love these movies, great movies like Moneyball and stuff like that, like great movies. But after you watch them, you want to go and you want to work and you want to hustle. Like, I used to love David Goggins. I think he was absolutely brilliant. And he's like the epitome of hustle culture, And I think
Who's
great
gonna
brand.
carry the boats?
Who's gonna carry the boats? Great brand, wonderful stuff, really motivating. Good at some points. Like sometimes you do need just to hustle it out. But I think some people take it to an extreme and it's not what they actually want to do. And that's why, like, for example, David Goggins, his purpose is hustle. Like that's his life and he feels like that he's fulfilled that purpose. But that does not mean it has to be your purpose. And you will know and your body will know whether or not you actually want to chase a hustle culture kind of lifestyle. How? You'll burn out. And then if after you burn out, you enter the same cycle again, you're going to burn out again and again. You're going to think I overworked, I carried the load wrong. And it's like, no, you're actually just not listening to yourself. Not in the sense of physically, but like mentally and emotionally and deep down in here, you're not listening to yourself.
I think it's I just think it's such a tricky thing to navigate. Kind of like what you're saying. I think there's a lot of nuance to it. Because in a lot of cases, like for example, Alex Hormozy talks a lot about I just need to work harder, like it's just gonna suck, like you just gotta put in the reps, you gotta do all the stuff, blah blah blah. And the thing is, for a lot of people, that probably is true. Like you're probably not even close to your limit, and you're not putting in enough work. I know that for myself, I've seen that a lot. At the same time, I think the two things that can make that toxic are the way that you go about it, if you're doing it very unhealthily and unbalanced, and why
Yeah.
you're doing it in the first place. Because if you don't have that internal drive, the stamina, you're not going to be able to sustain it for a long enough period of time, and you're going to burn out. Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that leads me into the next thing I was going to ask you about is, from everything that I know about you and what I've seen online, I would say that you're a little bit of a multi-passionate kind of a person. You've got poetry. You're a published author, which I want to dig into that too, because that's something I want to do as well. I know you've worked at a bunch of like student organizations and that kind of thing. You're posting on LinkedIn. You have your studies. There's all of this stuff. So how do you approach the idea of balance? Do you feel like it's possible to achieve balance in your life?
That's a great question. I think the one thing I would establish is we're all at the state where we just want to over optimize our lives. I need to, like, you know how they say, like, go on time exactly what you do every single day. You're wasting your time, like, sitting on the toilet for too much or scrolling on this, or you spent 10 minutes
Mm-hmm.
making your bed, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I want to have the perfect schedule. I want to make sure I'm, optimizing how much I can work, how much I need to rest. I want to be my best absolute version of myself. And I think number one, the great thing about this, it means that we've entered the stage in this type of society where our problem is just being the best version of ourselves. We're not thinking that much about food, shelter, survival. We're at this point where we can just think about optimizing ourselves, but we take it too far, I think. And the way, if you ask me, like, how do I balance all of this stuff? It just kind of naturally happens. I wake up, I got my to-do list, I sit down. It's work that invigorates me. So kind of like, I don't know if did you play video games as a child when you were
All
younger?
the time. That's
Yeah.
all I did as a kid.
Okay. Would you ever like wake up and just be excited to get back to a game?
100% all the
Yeah.
time. I'd be so pumped.
Yeah. You just be thinking about it all the time. Like, I had Minecraft World. I'd be like, yeah, next morning I'm waking up and building this. We're doing
The
this farm, blah,
Minecraft
blah,
grind
blah.
goes crazy.
Yes, like you'd mine for hours, blah, blah, blah. And the motivation, you wake up and it's there and you start and you don't feel like you've overdone it, of course, until you get tired. So the work I do is that level of invigoration. So when I wake up, the first thing I think is I can't wait to like get to work. I can't wait to write my LinkedIn post. I can't wait to look at comments. I can't wait to work on the societies. And yes, there are days where I don't have motivation, but those days I don't push too far. I actually let myself chill out. I do things I did as a kid. I play Minecraft still. I
Nice.
watch gaming YouTube channels. I watch nostalgic
Heck
old
yes.
TV shows like, Rick and Morty. I watch just stuff that makes me happy, and I spend the day like just being kind of a bum. And the next day my brain is refreshed because I actually told myself, you know what, Barbara, you can relax. And I think a good practice for people, take a day, don't even warn anyone. Don't reply to messages, don't go on your phone, don't do any work, like actually disappear from society and come back the next day and you will see that you didn't miss out on much. Now, of course, if you do this every day, you will fall back, but like it kind of like lets you calm down because you don't feel like there's that much of a time constraint. So that's how I manage things. I just kind of take a chill, and by taking a chill, I'm actually more productive than I used to be before. Where I used to over op. My calendar would be like this task 1 hour, eat here. This task, like from 9 a.m. until 10 p.m. Every single minute of the day was planned as to exactly what I need to do, and I burnt out because I treated myself like a robot. I don't know, like, what's your experience with tackling so many things?
The motivation behind me asking is it's something that I struggle with a lot.
Yeah.
Because I always feel like I have more things that I need to do than I have time to do them in. And then if I chill out too much, then I feel guilty that I'm chilling out too much, which obviously is not healthy, and I know that.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where for me personally, I feel like I have so many balls in the air that I feel like are all equally important, or at least all important, that I can't just drop them or not do them. So for me, I find it really hard, but I think what I have come to see, and this is to your point of what you were saying before, is that you can't force it, like, at all. You can be on the money with what you need to do. You can prioritize. I'll give you an example. I was writing for a client. This was like yesterday, 2 days ago, and I just couldn't do it. I don't know what it was. I was trying so hard to just write for this person and to do the research and all the stuff I normally do. It just wasn't happening. And I spent like 8 or 9 hours just banging my head against these stupid tasks that I needed to do for this person. And I was getting nowhere. And I got to the end of the day and I was so mad. I'm like, how is this possible? Like, I've invested all of this time and I've made no progress. Like, it just drove me bonkers. But it helped me to realize and to really understand that sometimes brute force is not going to get you there. Like, cramming in more things is not going to get you there. Sometimes you need to just be a bit of a couch potato, take a step back, watch some freaking Minecraft videos on YouTube, and just chill out.
Yeah.
It's actually not that serious. Like you said, the world's going to keep spinning. And actually, what your brain most often needs, especially if you're used to over optimizing, is just to have some dang space to actually be able to think, to
Yes.
be able to stop like your brain going constantly, because it's just not healthy. Like you're in a constant state of stress, and stress like actually actively destroys your body. You need
Yes.
to be able to just, so that's my
Tune
long
it
answer
back.
to your question. What do
Yeah.
you think about
Yeah.
that?
I think you've brought up such a good example. Like that day where you were forcing the client work. Imagine if you just spent that day doing nothing. And the next day you woke up and your mind was fresh and you would have done a good job. And I think that's the issue is we put this pressure to be perfect. And I totally get that with clients because I know when I'm doing work for someone, I want it to be good work. Especially if they're paying for me, I always overdo it. And I just like you, some days you sit there, especially with creative work, you sit there and your mind is just boggled. And I realized actually what does work is I'm just honest with the person I work for and I let them know. And they actually, like, that's why also I learned to be selective with people I work for is the people that I do work for understand that we're both humans and that we can honestly communicate with each other and I can tell them this is going to be delayed, this is why, but they'll know at the end of the day, I will deliver them good quality work. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not some machine that produces, maybe not exactly on the point, maybe not the amount of the point, but at the end of the day, it will be good quality work. And sometimes I also mess that up as well. But they know me and they trust me and you're honest. I think as long as you show them that you have that honesty, I think that means more than having someone who's just like regurgitating a bunch of good content. But one thing I will also mention that you mentioned about the rest, because you said you would try to rest and you felt really stressed out about resting. The moment, if you rest and you feel guilty while resting, you might as well not be resting. Like you genuinely might as well not be resting because your whole biological body is still in this mode of like, oh my God, I'm not doing my work and I'm just gonna combust. It's just these devils are talking at you. And it's like, okay, like you stopped fighting the war, but you now have people screaming at you and stomping at you and and now you're just being trampled at, and you didn't do work. So it's like you've just added a double stress to yourself. And like I wrote in my article, it's a long thing to work for. It takes time. But what you can try to do in the beginning is sit down and tell yourself, like, pick out a day, maybe this week or next week, and say, that day, my task and my purpose that day is just to do rest. I'm going to do absolutely nothing. I've written down all of my to-do lists and I've parked it and I've left it for tomorrow. And you need to trust yourself and trust that you will do this tomorrow and you will have the time to do it tomorrow. And the moment you're able to do that mentally, oh my God, will you chill out? And when you chill out, sometimes people will say this is not normal, but I kind of like detach myself from my current present self and I pretend like I'm still a kid. And you have those days where you wake up and the only worry you have in the world is I need to eat, I need to sleep, I need to play with my friends. And you can do that. You can 100%. That's a beautiful thing of the human mind. You just pretend that and you convince yourself of that. And after that day, trust me, Jarek, you're going to feel like you can do so much work. You're going to feel so energized. Your brain's going to be fresh. You need that rest. And if that doesn't work, then you really have to start doing more internal work about that. Usually I would say it's better to do it with the professional because it's more like structured. But if you can't afford the professional, you got the beautiful world of the internet. You got YouTube and you can prioritize that. And you know that like prioritizing that and investing time into that long-term wise is going to be a massive investment. Even though you have other things stacked on, you're always going to have a stack full of things to do. And maybe, I don't know if you plan on having children, but like there's so many different things that are going to come in your life. You're going to be just as busy, so there's no perfect time to start working on yourself and your mental state of mind and relaxation and stuff like that.
That point about being more like a child, I think, is really important because I can't imagine if I pulled like a random peasant or something from like the 10th century into our modern world and I told him and tried to explain how I view my day and what I do, I don't think he would understand. Like, he'll
No.
just be absolutely bamboozled. Like, what are you talking about right now? Like, that's insane. Because even though, life was maybe a little harder back then, people actually worked less than they do now. And they were way less stressed about it most of the time,
Yes.
And so I guess my takeaway for myself is to reject hustle and embrace like just childish whimsy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Just like have that fun again.
Absolutely.
Because when you said that, I immediately pictured the rainy days when I was like 11 or 13 or something, and I'm inside and I'm playing Minecraft for like 9 hours straight. I'm having the time of my life, and I'd only stop to go eat food, and it was the best. I'm not saying that that's a healthy, balanced life, but I think sprinkling that in there is definitely part of a healthy, balanced life. So
Yes.
I really like that, and I really appreciate that those insights that you shared. I think I need to take that to heart a little bit myself.
Yeah, like be a child for a day, and if your wife's up for it, do it too. Like I did that with my partner once, where he missed his graduation because he was sick, and instead of
Darn.
feeling bad about it, we spent the whole day. We got snacks from morning till night, minus a little walk in the middle. We played Minecraft, we played Halo. Like we were absolute childish bums for the day. And you know what? I think that's the one thing that I'm also learning about adulthood is people feel like they have to act like adults. But like, what does it even mean to be adult? Like, okay, you're older, your body has changed, you have different responsibilities. Okay, you have to make money. Like, that's stressful. But who said that being like a part of those responsibilities is having to let go of certain things that made you happy as a child? You know, we all secretly want to still be children. You know, and I love like living, like spending time with children because you get to be childish with them as well. You know.
So recently, I've been thinking a lot about an idea that I think is related to what we're talking about here. I call it just fun maxing, just a play on the looks maxing and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that's important in the sense of, I think that in a lot of things in life, it's going to be hard and you have to push yourself. Like, that's just part of life. At the same time, for my own experience, I've seen that if I am aligned in the right way, doing the things that I want to be doing, which fit with my purpose and where I want to go with my life, it's actually way easier and way more fun to do those things, right? So when I say fun maxing, I don't mean like haha, whimsy, worry free. It's just like pure fun all the time. But I mean that if you're optimizing for things that are easier in your life and things that you're excited for, that you really want to do, everything actually becomes easier. And that's a better way to do more work because it's more aligned with your purpose and it's more fun, right? Do you kind of
Yeah.
agree with that method of thinking, or do you see it a little bit differently?
No, I fully agree with your thinking. I think back to high school and like the subjects that you loved and the subjects that you absolutely hated. But like I was always an English kid, and I also loved philosophy. Even now, whenever I get stuff like assignments in university, I'm doing business management, so we always have to analyze businesses, and I always analyze video game companies. And
Nice.
you give me Apple, you give me Twitter, you give me I don't know some other company, and I will pull my hair out of boredom from writing this article. Take the same subject, like same article type, and like give me a video game company that I love, like Project Red or Unity. I am going all in on that research, you know, like I'm doing overtime work. I'm not writing a report anymore. I'm writing a whole dissertation, you know.
Love that.
So I think that's a good example of it. It's just make it fun and like tailor it to your interests and what you actually like. So yeah, I fully agree with you.
Okay, let me take this to a bit of a different angle here. So I know that you've obviously published a book. I know that you've talked about the importance of storytelling and that kind of thing before. So tell me a little bit about why you believe that storytelling is an important skill for people to know and to use in their daily life.
Okay. If you think about most things, like look back at history. History is not just about the recollection of facts. It's about storytelling. And if you ask actual historians how they see history, their point of history is actually trying to show people, like have people see the world and history the way they perceive it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that all comes from storytelling. And if you look at all of the greats of, I don't know, when it comes to physics, when it comes to writing and this and that, people weren't attracted just because of the factual stuff that was discovered, but they were attracted by the story. And I think that's why it's, especially now with the rise in like AI and all of this techie stuff, I think all of the jobs that are easily replicable that anybody can do are going to be taken over at some point. They're going to be optimized, and we can't really beat the machine with that. But the one thing that we do have is originality, because all of these models, they're based off data. So they can make stuff based off what has already been written by humans, but they can't create new things. And what's really interesting, if you train them based off human data, they perform incredibly well. But if they get trained off of data that they created themselves, that the output becomes increasingly and increasingly worse. So even though AI is able to learn old stuff and have that data and make new things, we're the ones who have the creative brains, and we're the ones who can make up new stuff. And so we will still need that human input in order to have a quality AI output. And to go back to storytelling, it's an easy way to communicate stuff. It's as simple as that. We understand stories so well. And no matter in what field you are in, when you apply for a job, even now, like, they look at your personality, you go on interviews. Yes, you need to know like the physical, like knowledgeable stuff. But when they meet you, if you can tell a good story, and if you can phrase yourself well, you're going to, like, all of the great people who got investments in their companies, into startups and stuff like that, they knew how to sell themselves. And selling yourself does come with telling a good story at the end of the day.
I agree. I think that storytelling is just kind of the human method of communication, that, like you said, facts, like, you can sort of understand them, but they don't really mean anything, but stories, I don't know, there's just a deeper level of shared meaning that happens when you exchange stories. And I agree with your point on AI, because all AI really is just like the average of human creativity. That is basically what it is, right? Because it's just a statistical model based on the data that it has. And so it's incredibly helpful for a lot of things, but it's not going to craft a perfect story or have something with soul in it, because it's missing that human element. So let's get a bit practical when it comes to storytelling. What's the easiest way that you know to tell a story that's impactful? Like, if someone knows absolutely nothing about how to tell good stories, where should they start?
God, I'll be honest, that's one that's really difficult for me to describe, because I've actually never sat down and deconstructed storytelling, or how it works, or what makes a good story. Because for me, when I write, I get a feeling for what I've written, and when I read over it, I will know whether or not it hits the spot, like if it feels right. And then I will somehow edit it until it gets there. What that consists of, the only thing I do know is, if you have an emotion inside of you and you want to communicate it, don't that's the beauty of writing. That's why I love poetry. Poetry has no barriers to it. No grammar, no vocab, no writing, no textualizing, nothing. You can throw up all of English language, like, learning, and you can write whatever you want. And because you have that boundless format to it, you can now fully express your emotions. And even though the way you write might not make sense in the moment, but it feels right to you, people will somehow feel that. And that's how you tell a good story, is just be yourself and let your emotions come through onto the writing, and people will connect with that. You don't have to have the perfect writing. You don't have to have the perfect format. Just write, and let yourself write from your heart, because somehow as humans, we can detect that and we can feel that. And when I write to people, they immediately know whether or not I wrote that from my heart, or I wrote that like from overwriting it, over editing it, and making it sound hyper professional, which we can tell with AI content. AI content is basically the 100% version of that. If you write and you over edit, you're going to get AI content. So that's kind of my way of describing it.
There's a lot of truth to what you said, especially with the over polished and kind of too perfect kind of thing. It's just, it's kind of stale. I don't know how else to describe it, but I think that there's a power in human storytelling and communication, because it's so like messy in a sense, because when you're trying to share an emotion, that emotion isn't like sterile. It's not clean. It doesn't fit in like a neat box. You're trying to capture the essence, the soul, the zeitgeist of like an experience, and how you communicate that through a story isn't going to be perfectly packaged.
How do you go about storytelling?
I think the easiest way that I've understood how to tell stories that just works as a frame of reference for me is intent, obstacle, resolution, just those three. But I will add the caveat of, I think that storytelling usually is something very deeply personal and kind of heart-led, if that makes sense. Like what you were alluding to, I think you feel it more than you see it, if that makes sense. Like frameworks definitely help, especially if you have no previous experience. But my personal opinion is you will learn a lot more about storytelling, not from studying storytelling, but for consuming more like fiction and things like that. Watch more movies, read more books, that kind of thing. As you do that, you internalize what a good story looks like. I think I understand what a good story looks like because I'm obsessed with The Lord of the Rings, for example, right? I think that's pretty much the perfect fantasy story, right? Like hero sets off, hero encounters obstacle, blah, blah, blah. It's like a textbook story, but consuming fiction, consuming more stories helps you become better at it. But if you need a framework, I think the simplest is intent obstacle resolution. You want to do one thing, something gets in your way. How did you overcome it? I think it's the easiest story that you can tell, because all a story really is just a journey of transformation, right? The world was one way, something happened, now it's another way. Like the world was good, Sauron happened, we have to destroy the ring. As a basic outline. So that's how I try and approach storytelling. But I'll be completely honest, I personally struggle with storytelling, not because I don't understand what a story is, but because I feel like I don't have stories that are worth telling. That's my problem. And I know that's not true. Factually, that's not true. But I will look at my day and I'll look at the experiences that I have and go like, people aren't going to care about that. Like it's not that special. It's not that interesting. And so that's something I'm still working on overcoming. And there's probably some deeper stuff there for myself that I need to work through in terms of my own value and all that kind of stuff. And you're probably like, yep, that's absolutely something you need to be doing.
Well, what I would say to that is honestly rephrase it from asking yourself, is this worth sharing? Will people want that? And just like think of, if you're thinking of posting out on LinkedIn, just say, oh, LinkedIn's where I share my thoughts. Useless ones, maybe interesting ones, but I'm just going to dump my mind onto LinkedIn. And that's going to remove that obstacle. And people will resonate to some of those posts. And then afterwards, you can use that resonation with the posts as like affirmation to you. You know what? Actually, they thought that was interesting. And I would have never assumed that, But you have to kind of trick yourself into posting regardless of ship.
Well, let me end on this question. I think this will be a really good one to end with, and I want to get your perspective on it. We've talked about a lot of different things. We've covered burnout, covered hustle culture. We've talked about a whole bunch of different kinds of things. My last question for you is, how can someone that listens to this podcast dream really, really big while also staying grounded and not, burning out or giving up?
That is such a good question. And God, I guess you want to dream big, but you also want to stay realistic, right? To me, honestly, I always say, and I know people will disagree with this, but I say dream big and dream with your heart. And the reason why I say this is the pain of, it's such a typical saying, but the pain of regret is bigger than the pain of mistakes in action. And if you go back and you think when you're older and you had this big dream you wanted and you didn't even try to chase it, you're going to feel worse than if you tried your best and you failed at it. Because when you fail at stuff, you learn. When you learn, you grow. It's a positive thing. Like failure is a good thing, So I think dream big. And being realistic, yes, one thing that really helps is you write down your main goals and then you break them down. And you say, I need to do this within this time, this within that time. And then on a daily basis, I can do that. And that's an easy way to track your goals, because usually it's the micro stuff that builds up over time rather than the macro things. And we do need that because life is so convoluted. It's so busy. It's so hectic that I can't constantly look back at the macro. I need to dilute it to micro. So on a daily basis, I can wake up and I know I have to do these tasks. And over time, they build up. And you're like, oh, yeah, actually, you know what? I did achieve my goal. I forgot about that, So that's how you can make it realistic. But also follow your gut. Because there are certain things that statistically, or like if you look at like general logical advice, it works the best. Sometimes your gut will be more correct. And that's like a game of chance, because life is not fully predictable. You don't know what's going to happen. But if you follow your gut, I have always found that my gut has been correct. Maybe not for other people, but for me personally, if I follow my gut, that's always led me to good outcomes. Yeah, I learned some mistakes, but sometimes like with the burnout story, I needed to learn that mistake. And I followed my gut, and my gut led me to a mistake I had to learn, and I grew from that. Yada, yada, yada. I don't know if you've ever read The Alchemist.
I love that
book. That is a book. If anyone's thinking about dreaming out loud and being realistic, I would say read The Alchemist. It's a sweet book. It's a nice fictional story, but the general message of it is so powerful. And every time I feel lost in life, I just reread that book. And I always assign it to people who feel lost in life, and it does help them quite a lot. So that's what I would say about dreaming in life, is just go for it, honestly.
I agree. I think it's one of those things where, like, I know one of the cliche sayings people have is aim for the stars, and even if you miss, you'll end up somewhere among them, or something along those lines. But I do think it's true. Like, why not dream big? Yeah. Why not be a little bit delusional in what you think you're able to do? Why not aim like ridiculously high and stretch yourself and have some crazy cool experiences? What's the worst that's going to happen? Oh, you're going to mess up? I would rather live my life to the fullest and try my absolute darndest to do something crazy in my life rather than settling for mediocre average,
Yeah.
you know, run of the mill, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a
Because
really
you then determine that you're not going to make it. And who are
right.
you to determine that?
I love that. That is such a good note to end on. A little mic
Yeah.
drop kind of thing.
Mic
That's
drop.
sick. I love it.